Don't bother, I'm not singing. I'm talking. I'm naturally a regular old tramp, just like my dear father in that way. A soldier of fortune. That's what every artist is, if the truth be told. Yes, I liked change and adventure. It was in the blood, I suppose, for generations and generations. So from the very beginning, I loved your great and generous country. Those were busy years in America. My good debut in Chicago was followed by appearances in New York, where my success was as great. All went well, and Grau was always my true friend during these first years with the Metropolitan. And now, while we speak of it, I will tell you that the first operas I sang at the Metropolitan were Ortrud in Lohengrin. That was the first. Then there was Erda in Rheingold and Siegfried, Fricka in Valkyrie, Magdalena in Die Meistersinger, Brangain in Tristan, Mary in The Flying Dutchman, Mercelina in The Marriage of Figaro. Your opera season in New York is during the winter months, which left me free to sing in London for the season, which is in the summer, beginning in May. It was during my first years in America that I returned to sing again in London and also in Bayreuth, which played a great part in my career. I sang in London at the Covent Garden Opera, the Wagner Cycle, and many other parts. I had first gone to London with Pollini in my Hamburg days, when he took his whole corps of German Wagner singers to London. We were all engaged for the opera season there. Then, too, I was already known to the English people, because I had sung in Crowell and other places. And as the English are always traveling about, I didn't come to London quite unknown. It was at Crowell that I first met your great American singer, Lillian Nordica. Yes, in the early days, we all went to London with Pollini and his whole company. I didn't know anything of hotels there, of course. I only knew I had 700 shillings a week from the last week in June to the 24th of July. I, who had been getting only a few hundred marks a month, to get 700 shillings a week. It was a fortune. But, as usual, I was economical. You cannot teach an old dog new tricks, you know. So I went to a little boarding house and paid only 12 shillings a week. I had one small room, but I didn't mind where I lived or anything else that first season in London. And now comes a funny thing. I made a sensation in Erda. It was a tremendous success, and all the people in high society wanted to meet me personally. But nobody knew where I lived, and I wouldn't tell. All my colleagues came and asked me, Nordica, de Resque, Plancon, and so on. But I wouldn't tell, much as I cared for them. I might as well say right now that Jean de Resque and Plancon played a big part in my life. Jean de Resque, until the end of his days, was always my friend in every way. He really loved my voice, and I may tell you that he was my greatest admirer. When we sang together in the operas, our relations were always of the highest. He was a great, great singer. What a genius. It was in London I first met him. Well, my boarding house was in Great Russell Street, opposite the big museum, and I lived there very peacefully, and stupidly, I suppose, and put up with the rotten meals and everything else that I didn't like, and got through with my first season. Later on, I did meet a lot of society people but I always used to make some excuse so as not to go to their dinners and parties. And Nordica would scold me for this and say it was a mistake. She was always a kind, helpful friend. She told me how all these grand titled people used to try to find out where I was living. I had a terrible experience one night when a drunken sailor broke into the boarding house and shoved himself into my room. After that, I put my washstand up against the door and piled everything on top of it. I was frightened, I tell you, which sounds funny for a mother and a prima donna. But anyway, I decided then that was no place for me to stay. And I told Nordica about my experience. Well, she said, it serves you right. Why do you live in such a place? We must do something for you. Ernestine, she said, it is so stupid of you to go on like this. It is high time you met some of these people who want to know you. I will give a dinner for you at my house, and you shall sing afterward. And so it was arranged, and I was to be introduced to society. Well, the night came, and I took a hansom and drove to her beautiful house in Regent Park. But when I got there and stepped out, I had the shock of my life. I heard talking and laughing inside. And when I rang the bell, the high and mighty butler who opened the door, well, he just stared at me. I had no evening dress at this time. I had nothing but an ordinary dress on and a plain old coat. The butler glared at me. What do you want? He said. I didn't speak any English, so I said in German, I want to see Madame Nordica. But he refused to let me in, and I could not make him understand. He wouldn't let me pass. Well, luckily, Nordica's French maid heard the talking and came to the rescue. It seems I was very late, and Nordica was getting nervous. When she saw me, she rushed out into the hall and caught hold of me. Heavens, Ernestine, at last you are here. But she stopped short. What's this? No evening dress on? Are you mad? Why, you simply cannot come in that old dress. The Duke, so and the Duchess. This and that are all here. Everyone is expecting you. You are a sight. A sight. But, I said, it can't be helped. I have no evening dress. No, sir. I had only a concert dress, but I was so economical even then that I would not wear it to her dinner. Well, Nordica looked at me. She threw up her hands. Then she burst out laughing and said something to her maid. Then she turned to me and whispered, for heaven's sake, Ernestine, go with my maid upstairs, quick, before anyone sees you, and she'll fix you up and make you look decent. It didn't take very long until I was perfectly dressed. Her maid was French and knew her business. There I was, beautifully turned out, with pearls and earrings and a necklace and things stuck in my hair from Nordica's jewel box. It was a fine black dress I had on. I was not so fat at this time, so it fitted me very well. But I don't mind telling you that Nordica's slippers were too large. You know, I really have very small feet, a characteristic of Austrian women. Well, we stuck something in the toes of the slippers, and I wore them. The maid had arranged my hair in big, thick braids. You know, I always had nice hair from the beginning, and, well, I didn't know myself. I was fine. Yes, the maid dressed me up, and she dressed me down, and powdered me, and painted me, and hung things on me, and got me ready, and down I came into the drawing room, where all the grand guests were waiting. When Nordica saw me, she really opened her eyes wide, I tell you, and whispered, nobody would know you, Ernestine. How do you feel now in all those fine clothes? Well, I answered, I'm a good actress. It's just another part anyway. I'm beginning to feel as if they were mine. I can get through with this, all right? And pretend I really wear elegant clothes all the time. Don't worry. I won't disgrace you and your grand duchesses. We laughed. And of course, nobody else caught on to the joke. We had a beautiful dinner. I sang for them afterwards. And it was a sensation. Nordica was delighted. Yes, it was a grand dinner. And such wonderful guests. Princes and dukes. All the people in high society. And of course, everything was tip-top. Nordica was very generous always. A fine hostess. She gave many great dinner parties and was a great favorite with the English aristocracy. Well, it was a great success, as I said before, and I didn't disgrace her with my clothes, at any rate. I sang with Duim, her husband, Hungarian songs, and everybody was quite mad about them. When it was all over, I trotted back in the old handsome cab to my room in Great Russell Street. But I learned a lesson that night and determined that the next time I came to London, I'd live in better quarters. This was the beginning of many parties with Nordica and other people. My debut, as we say, in high society.
The sweetest flower and bloom I give you as we part, for you it is the room, for me is my heart. The fragrance is exquisite. Oh, if you only knew which passing dying feels, it is my love for you. The sweetest flower that grows I give you as we part, for you it is